Right, basically this is a small black powder cannon. It's previously been used by battle reenactors, the Sealed Knot Society here in Britain. Not sure how old it is, probably not very old, but I've acquired it. It's black powder. It has approximately a 2-inch bore to it. It's pretty heavy. Not sure exact weight. Probably at least probably in the region of 60 kilos. Yeah, it's about 40 inches long, thereabouts. Now, I've picked up these wheels, cast irons they are, and they're a tiny little on the large size. For instance, I've got this small cannon here, cast iron, little black powder job. That's about a 1-inch bore on that one, and I made the carriage up for this some years ago, and you can see scale wise the wheels are quite small in comparison to the gun, whereas the wheels are a little bit larger. But you know, if you look on the internet, you'll see carriages made up with all sorts of wheels. The classic would have had wooden wheels on it, but later on they started to fit cast iron wheels onto ship's cannon and so on, particularly ones which maybe were not on ships and maybe in forts, you know, on coastal forts for protecting ports and stuff like that. They probably would have been more likely to have cast iron wheels on them. They'd be running around on concrete and so on. And if I don't like it, what I can do is I can put some wood in there to fill it in, so it'll look like it's a wooden wheel with an iron band around it. That's just options I've got. Yeah, I got these wheels because they're marked up Geo Henderson, right? I'm not that worried about that bit, but what I did like was the fact they've got Edinburgh and Kelso on them. Now, well, it appeals to the Scottish ancestry side of me, you know. Edinburgh, they still, as far as I know, they still have a 1 o'clock gun, which goes off in Edinburgh. And Kelso, well, basically that's near to where, or just about where my family comes from on the Scottish borders. It's actually Jedburgh, but Kelso, yeah, it's basically Care country, Scottish borders. So I like them wheels, so I would say they're pretty much going on it. I've been trying to work out the scale of the carriage, and it looks to me like it wants a base of the carriage about 28 inches long, and if I stick that approximately there in front of the trunnion, if I remember right, and I get my tape measure, lock that off. Right, 28 inches. The tail of it just goes past the rear end of the carriage, and 28 sits about there, just about 2 inches in front of the centre of the wheel there. So I would say that's approximately fairly good position. And if I build a carriage which is approximately 1 foot deep, taking it halfway up the side of that barrel there, yeah, because obviously it will be halfway onto a trunnion there. So if I go halfway up that barrel down to there, that puts me just above here. Now if I then fit some sort of axle arrangement across the carriage underneath, that will sort it out. I haven't decided exactly what way I'm going to mount the wheels on. The holes in this are just under an inch in size. I did think they were 22 millimeters. If you put a 22 millimeter wiring conduit in there, it fits, but it's a little bit sloppy, so it's approximately 23 millimeters, or some sort of imperial equivalent to it. Anyway, I'm going to go and have a look in the garage, see what's kicking around. Hello, Larry. These are the rest of my wheels, the other three. I've got them painted and drying out here in the sun. They are antique wheels, don't know how old. It's hard to say, probably 1920s, 1930s, something like that. Gonna make a comment? No? Okay. Right. No, you're not coming in. No, Larry. No. Try to come in here all the time. I've got a lot of this. This is left over from when I had the garage built. They were wooden timbers fitted in until the windows were fitted, so they're second hand. Now, if I get my tape measure, 4 pieces high brings me to just on 1 foot in height, which is what I want. So I reckon they're going to be quite good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the nails and crap out of these and try and get the lime wash off this, at least on, get most of the lime wash off, and then see how those timbers work out. Okay, little bit of progress. I decided, yeah, I'm going to use these wheels. What I'm going to try and do is I'll mount them on some steel shafts, probably just running through the carriage. This is basically the sort of look that the gun's going to have. Obviously, the carriage will be off the ground when it's completed by a few inches. So I've got to work out the best place where I'm going to put the axles through the carriage. I'm also going to cut an arch under here is my plan, but I don't want to go and do it too soon and mess up the arch with reference to the wheels. The wheels are a little bit larger than they possibly should be. If I was to look at some real gun carriages, which I happen to have some pictures of here, you know, the scale of the carriage to the wheel, you know, the wheel should be a bit smaller. I've just made these up for the to clamp the trunnions down. Now I would like to say that I made them out of some solid flat bar and shaped them, but that's not the case. I haven't got a forge and it would be quite hard to do that. So what I've done is I found some pipe with about a 3-4 millimeter wall on it, about 3.54 millimeter wall, and maybe even more, maybe about 5 mil. Yeah, it could be about 5 mil wall on it. And what I've done is I've cut that up and I made it so that it would fit over there. Then I've welded these 3-inch sides on, 3-inch by 2-inch, yeah, onto them. Then what I've done is the other half of the pipe, which I had to cut away, which would have been, you know, the pipe would have fitted all the way around there. The other half I've then hammered over the top, and then I've welded it all up. I've welded it in and filled it in. You can see it there on both sides. And I've ground out the bottom where the metal meets, and I've welded in there on both sides. So I'd like to say, with any luck, that it's a fairly solid mounting. So I've got to make some decisions about how I'm going to fix all this down. Now I've looked on a lot of fairly accurate jobs, and they tend to use these post ideas with a pin which runs through, because back in those days they didn't have thread taps and stuff like that, so they couldn't just stick it down on 2 lugs and put 2 dirty big wing nuts on it, or even conventional nuts. So I'm looking at doing that, but you know, the simplisticness of me looks to, well, why not just drill 2 big holes and make two really sort of chunky old-fashioned nuts up, square ones, which you can, you know, span around, but it probably won't have the right look to it. You never know, I may go down that line, haven't quite decided. I think the Canon is about a 2-pounder in terms of spec. It's a good size, you know. There's his touch hole. It says 4 ounces of black powder it takes. Yeah, well, you never know, eh? I need some more of those. It's starting to look quite reasonable now. I'm making these stud rods to drop down through the timber. What I'm doing is I'm welding them onto a large round washer, and then I'm hammering them to make them look like they've been riveted, so they've been forged, you know. So it's basically a piece of studding through a large washer, welded round, ground a little bit, and then a lot of hammering with a ball peen hammer. Then what I'm going to do when I finish that is I'm going to oil dip them. Right, so what I'm doing at the moment is I'm drilling holes through in 4 positions. Here, here, there, there. I've already drilled holes through, but then what I'm doing is I'm using this 1/2-inch drill bit, which has actually got a Morse taper on it, so it's not ideally suited. It keeps coming loose in the chuck. But it's the only drill bit I've got which is actually long enough to do this job. So I'm trying, there we go, it's gone loose again. Keeps doing this. And I have to keep trying to tighten it up. But I've got 2 holes drilled through it. So that's something. So I don't like doing this with a Morse taper and my chuck because it's probably gonna there, it's got loose again. Come loose again. Only does this about 78 times per drill hole, so it's not that annoying. Right, so we're through. Let's see if she can come out. What I've done here is what I was saying I was going to do. I've stuck these studs through a large washer, welded them, and then I've hammered them with a ball peen hammer. Now I'm just bluing them, oil dipping them. So I'm going to get them to a suitable colour. Sometimes I'll do them to blue, sometimes I'll go as far as straw, and then I'll dip them in oil, and they should go a nice bluey black colour depending on what colour I want to have them. See what this goes like. Occasionally you get a bit of oil burning on it, not a problem. It's gone a bit black there because of the burn. Most of that will probably come off. Second one. Okay, so it's starting to look quite good now. I've made the clamp bolts, you know, with the welded over and peened heads. So they look quite good. I've blued them. I've also just made up some axles. Basically they're 1 inch black steel bar, and I've turned them down so that my wheels fit on. Now these wheels, they're not fixed on yet. This is all just a preliminary assembly. None of it's actually properly bolted or glued or anything like that. It's just sat together so you can see the general look of things. Then I'll have to sort some bits of timber out to join the 2 sides together. It needs something inside here to bridge across, so I've got to work out the best, most solid way of doing that. And then I might put some sort of device in for adjusting the height, even though I know they used to use a lot of wooden wedges. Yeah, I'm fairly pleased with how it's generally worked out. Right, what I'm doing now is I've got some of this 6mm round bar, mild steel bar. It's got a bit of a galvanising finish on it, but I'm mostly burning that off with a blowtorch. Now, I've heated the ends of the bar up. I've flattened them out with a hammer against the anvil section on my vise. Splayed it out a bit like you would with a screwdriver if you were making a screwdriver. Probably, well, some of you may have done that in school. Probably the people who were at school in the 70s and 80s will have done things like that, but I don't know about today. Then I've drilled about 3mm, 2.5mm hole in each end. Now what I'm doing is I'm then cutting the ends off like so, about inch and a half, inch and 3/4 long, and I'm putting a little junior hacksaw cut down the end there. And the idea is to either just try and splay it out a little bit, or ideally splay it out, then put something in the gap and then tap the ends closed again, so that it's a bit like the eye of a needle, so that when you push it in to a hole, it'll contract and then expand again and hopefully stay in the hole. So the idea is I'll put some chain through these holes at the back end and join them together in pairs. So I'm just going to get on with that. Just about to saw the other end of this one off, and then we'll see how I get on. Okay, these are the pairs of securing pins with chains on them. Bit of old chain I found in the garage. I was thinking about bluing it, but it's got some sort of probably a nickel plating on it, so I'll probably just leave it silver. So the question is will they fit in these points there? They're not exactly how I was hoping to do them, and I may be playing around with them a little bit more, but yeah, of course I'm using my left hand now, not my right. Probably going to have to close them up with a pair of pliers a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Where are we? Let's give them a little nip up. Probably do the other one as well. See if they fit. Yeah, they do. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll just slide them in like that, and then I'll bung the screwdriver in the back and open them up a touch. Come on. You know you want to go in there. Yeah, there it goes. There it goes. Yeah, so just put a screwdriver in the back, give it a little wiggle, and they won't pull out. Not perfectly easy anyway. Come on, turn around. Yeah, so that's the idea. Yes, so I'm fairly pleased with how it's come out now. Do this other side, I suppose. While I was bluing these, I opened them up with a pair of pliers before I quenched them. So they're a little bit, well, I could say tempered, but probably not really. There we go. Come on. Bit of persuading. There we go. See, I could have put split pins in these, but I wanted something that looked more old-fashioned and very handmade rather than machine-made split pins. So I'm fairly pleased with it. I found some large brass washers in the garage on something, come off some electrical gear. So I had to file the centres out a little bit to fit over the axles, because I had to turn these axles down. They're 1-inch bar and they're turned down to about 23mm. So I needed washers with 23mm hole. Then what I've done is I've just drilled a 6mm hole through the centre of the axles. Well, good enough centre. And I got some of my 300-year-old loft nails, which have come out of the house, and filed them down a little bit and just hammered them in. So I think it gives it a nice touch, and I like using old parts where I can. Say it's something of the house I've put back into something which is in the house. These cast iron eye bolts have worked out quite nicely. Quite pleased with them, and she does roll backwards and forwards, you know, just about as I'd want. Did intend to put an elevation adjustment on it, a crossbar over it with a rotational device to bring it up and down, but I think what I'll just end up doing is I'll pack a piece of wood or an iron bar across it, and just slip it under there. It's never going to be firing the likes of that, I wouldn't say. Well, I don't think I'm going to at the moment, and I'm not going to admit it if I was. Yeah, so there won't be any aiming required. It's just to make a bang. God knows when I will actually fire it. I think there'll be a day when I probably will, but I'm not sure exactly when. Yeah, so what I'll probably do is I'll just put a piece of steel bar across under there, and that'll give it a rough overall look. The barrel's sort of balancing a little bit there. It's slightly stiff in the trunnions. Yeah. Stiff in the trunnions, it sounds like a bit of a... Well, I won't go there. Right, so... yeah, fairly pleased with it. So what do you think, Stella? Good? Yeah.